How's it going, guys? I'm Connor from Running Warehouse.
And I'm John from Running Warehouse.
And today we're going to be giving you our thoughts on the new HOKA Speedgoat 6. Now, the Speedgoat series has been around for nearly 10 years now, and while it's had some changes over the years, it's always retained those core philosophies of being a highly cushioned shoe that's still very nimble and, of course, has unrelenting traction that continues on with version 6. I was only able to get a few miles in this shoe because of my trail-related injuries. But John, you've put in the miles, you've tested it out. What were your first thoughts on this shoe?
Yeah, so I'm pinch hitting on this review. I'm an avid road runner. I like to run marathons, so I don't find myself on the trails too much, but due to some nagging injuries of some of our testers, I tested the Speedgoat 6, and I would say my initial impression when I first put the shoe on is that it felt a little firm, a little stiff. But again, I'm coming from the roads where you have those really soft and squishy foams. So it was a little bit of a shock, but to be expected, right? Because you don't want your trail shoes to be really squishy, otherwise you're sacrificing some stability. But those were the initial feels I had when I put it on.
Yeah, and I think I also noted that stiffness right out of the box. This feels maybe even a little bit stiffer than the last couple versions. Again, it helps with that stability on the trail, really helps for those uphill climbs to be really efficient, but I think it also maybe added to being a little bit firmer feeling. It's also worth noting this has a new midsole compound. Now, I feel like the biggest change with the midsole compound is they were somehow able to get it a little bit lighter. This is coming in a ½ ounce lighter than the last version, right about 9.5 ounces. So really lightweight on foot, still remains very nimble, and a shoe that can attack pretty much any trail.
Yeah, so a couple things you mentioned that I did notice was that lightweight feeling of the foam. So I don't have any experience in the Speedgoats in the past, but you know, for as much stack as we have here, I did expect it to feel maybe a little bulky, but I did not find that to be the case. I did find the shoe to be nimble, and the stiffness did help in those sections when I was wanting to go uphill, or even if I found a flat section and wanted to pick up the pace, I felt that stiffness assist. It was also really stable on any terrain. So even though maybe the foam isn't exactly what I'm used to in terms of softness, it was very well protective, and I didn't feel any issues no matter the terrain I was on. Each step was very confidence inspiring and comfortable.
Yeah, and that's very important, especially with a shoe that's nearly 38 millimeters of cushioning. This has the protection to go pretty much any distance. We see this in ultra marathons, upwards of 100 miles. This is a shoe that can go the distance, but also just feels reliable for daily training, and it really all comes down to that cushioning. Now, moving on down to the outsole, this is really the part that I enjoy the most about this shoe. It offers that Vibram Mega Grip rubber. We see it year after year, sticky, unrelenting traction, and the lug layout, it has changed a little bit in this version, but it maintains that aggressive feel with decent sized lugs, but not so large that it can't run well on the roads. Really a versatile outsole layout that can work on any terrain.
Yeah, so even though I don't run a ton on trails, I know enough to know that when you see that Vibram symbol on the outsole, you're in good hands, and I definitely felt the benefits of that during my runs. One thing that really stood out was just no matter the terrain I was on, whether it was smooth to muddy or rocky, I felt confident that I could land any which way and that I would be in good hands with this outsole. And again, like you said, the lugs are aggressive enough to have that bite, but they're not as thick where it would be harsh to run on the roads. And I found myself running on the roads quite a bit because I don't like to drive to trails. I like to try and run if I can. And it did the job on the roads just fine.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, maybe it's not quite as good at road running as maybe some of the past versions. Part of that comes to the stiffness, but again, it does the job. And I think it does work really well for technical terrain. And when you bring up rocky, this shoe has a good amount of protection underfoot mixed with that rubber compound. You just bounce off those rocks. There's no rock guard, but you never feel like you're poking through. Moving on to the upper, really wrapping the shoe together. I know this wasn't maybe the perfect fit for you, but what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, like you said, it wasn't the perfect fit for me, so I must have really low ankle bones because that's the primary issue I experience with shoes when they don't work in the upper, and that was the case with the Speedgoat. The heel collar, it has a nice construction, but it just felt a little stiff, and that stiffness rubbed against my ankle bones, which caused enough discomfort for me to maybe lean towards another shoe if I'm hitting the trails. But it was definitely breathable. It had really nice protection against the elements. Like I said, I was able to test it on a lot of different types of terrain, mud, water, and it did a really good job of keeping debris out. So it was great in that regard. It does have that kind of signature snug HOKA fit, which some people will enjoy. And even though I have a wider foot, it still fit nice and locked in, right, to add to that nimbleness. But yeah, just that heel collar is the reason why I just don't know if I can wear this shoe much more.
Yeah, I know you've had a little bit of this issue before with the ankles. Sometimes switching socks can help, but you're right, you kind of have to get that perfect fit. For me, it actually felt pretty good in the heel. And I think what really separates the Speedgoat from other trail shoes is how the upper works together with the full shoe to really help you feel at one. Again, you've got so much cushioning underfoot that you wouldn't think it feels nimble, but the upper just keeps you locked in, really feels like an extension of your foot. No hot spots for me, and you know, I think the upper really kind of just wraps the shoe together, makes it lightweight and breathable enough for some faster efforts, but also stable enough to go the distance. Overall, I feel like the Speedgoat 6 is gonna continue to be a shoe that any runner could use. If you're looking for a true trail running shoe for daily training, or if you're looking for an ultra marathon shoe that can go 100 miles, the Speedgoat's gonna do the job.
Yeah, Connor, so maybe ultimately the Speedgoat 6 isn't for me. However, I could see why this is a shoe that runners gravitate towards because it has that versatility. You're able to do many different things on the trails, and it's actually got me more excited to try different trail shoes to see if I can find that Goldilocks that's really gonna fit for what I'm looking for. But there was a lot of good things that I enjoyed about the Speedgoat, and obviously you can see why it's such a popular shoe.
Well, if you're looking to try out the HOKA Speedgoat 6 for yourself, it'll be available here in June 2024 at Running Warehouse.